Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is December 9, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here today with Laurence Von Miller. Where in the heck you calling in from, Laurence?
I'm calling in from Ypsilanti, Michigan.
That's
It's like a stone's throw from Ann Arbor.
My old stomping grounds, Ann Arbor. The first question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
Well, to be loved, I think, is pretty obvious.
To be loved is pretty cool. You know, a homeless hippie in my hometown here, Venice, California, his name was Eden Abe. He wrote a song called Nature Boy. And it made Nat King Cole's, it was Nat King Cole's biggest hit, but it's been done by Ella, Lady Gaga, John Coltrane, Miles Davis, everybody. And there's a line in the song that goes, "The greatest lesson you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return."
Yeah, I heard about that guy relatively recently. And the broadly speaking, the story you just related there, yeah, amazing.
To be loved, that's cool. Laurence, what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Well, in this day and age, I mean, that's the first thing I thought is like, yeah, right, the internet. No. So the best form of information, how do I most appreciate it, experiencing it coming in?
The form, what form is your favorite form of how information comes into you?
Well, accuracy, that's for sure. Honesty, genuine communication as far as, in relationship.
That's good. There's only one other person that's answered this in 40 years like you did. You used an adjective. And Norman Klein said, honest. What's your favorite form of information? He said, honest.
Yeah.
That was good. Accurate information.
Yeah.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Let's see. I'm thinking it's a way of validating, truth as it is pertains to you, how you see things, and in relationship to others.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. A lot of this stuff will come back around, and there's no rush. If you need to think, but I will keep throwing them out. It doesn't mean if you want to go back and say, let me suss that out, go ahead. But the next question is this need or want to collect information more innate or more invented?
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, my impulse is that it's innate somehow in human, whatever we are, as a species.
Right. Really good, Laurence, because two things came up in that. I don't know is totally valid. I'm not trying to put you on a spot.
Sure.
Say, oh, that's good. But also you said the word impulse. That's really what I'm after, is like impulse, intuition, hunch, guess, that kind of stuff is fine. I'm not holding you to these.
Yeah.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Oh yeah, they do. I've kind of learned that the long and possibly wrong way. My brother, my twin brother, had often mentioned that, when I have down periods, and I've learned to trace, what am I thinking about right now? And more often than not, it's a negative thought of some sort, doubt, whatever it is, that helps create this mood, this feeling that I'm now under enslaved to. So yeah, thoughts, I mean, words are powerful, and thoughts, usually could be defined in in sentences, and they can cause an emotional reaction. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Laurence, fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
Well, to ponder the situation, which takes time.
right, to ponder it. That's good. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. And Joan Didion said, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Mm.
So I like that verb ponder. I do a lot of that. Can humans think without language?
I would imagine so. I mean, I think the only reason language as such, I think the only reason we even use it is because we've been taught it, you know. I suppose if we didn't go to school and we didn't have parents and all that, it would become more of a primal, guttural sort of thing. But yeah, we compartmentalize things into boxes that are labeled and all that stuff, and it takes words and language, I think, is what it would be. Some kind of answer to that question.
That was good. Chomsky says the language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
My impulse to that is to give whoever it is a hug, become,
Oh my God.
you know, affection,
That is really beautiful. That's one of my favorite answers ever. Was a couple months ago, a guy goes, group hug.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There it is.
Well, I go back to what is your favorite form of information? When I asked Craig Baldwin, the great filmmaker, that, he says human touch.
Mm.
As information, we don't think of that. And then,
Yeah.
Ann Magnuson, who had the band Bong Water. What a band name. Ann Magnuson said, I says, what's your favorite form of information? She says, hugs.
Yeah.
But you don't think of hugs as information per se. So it goes right along with this. Of course, this is a stupid question, and it's both, and it depends. But just again, your hunch, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings? Your observations of humans in general.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards feelings, but then I think that's more of a reflection of the way I am. I don't know. I'm a relatively emotional man, broadly speaking, compared to the stereotypical guy.
Yeah.
So, and I just see, you see a lot of stuff go down. I'm thinking more on the negative side, and it's all based on this emotional crap.
Yeah.
I'm thinking politics now.
Yeah, hello. Well, these are two questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
I'm just thinking probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His second question is, can machines think?
Well, we're learning more and more about that every day, aren't we? I mean, I'd like to think, and I'd like to believe that no, they can't. They certainly do, from what it seems, a pretty good job of it, potentially. And that said, we as humans don't always do such a good job of it.
Right. Well, do you more pursue meaning or more pursue happiness?
Meaning.
Yeah, I got that from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, meaning you can last. Happiness doesn't necessarily last.
Yeah. Yeah. Happiness, in my experience, is short-lived. Joy is a little different. That's a bigger thing that usually is rooted in something specifically real that's not so subjective. But happiness, like I bought a Gretsch guitar, a hollow body Gretsch. I always wanted one. It wasn't top of the line, but this was like about 8 or 9 years ago, and I thought, oh man, I finally got this Gretsch. After a couple of months, it's like it just didn't. Not the hole's there again. The happiness is gone.
The hole is there again. I like it. Does the brain that's good. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
You mean our own consciousness?
Yeah, again, you put all the questions in, you put the questions into the context you want. So yeah, I mean, you could say consciousness in general, the entire universe, or you could say consciousness for humans or consciousness for you.
Okay,
you could put
I'm sorry. Yeah, so just ask me that question again.
Does the brain more detect consciousness or create consciousness?
Well, I would think both.
Yeah. That's fine. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
It's funny. I've thought about that, and I think they're probably the same speed. Possibly thought is faster.
That is good. Yeah, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. No, I love it when people say speed of thought is faster than speed of light.
Yeah.
It's so
I think so, man.
It's so easy to be scientific and believe science, but I mean, come on, we had to think up speed and light, words for light, and all that before we even came up with the measurement in the ruling stick. Audre Lorde, the poet, says you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Yep.
Yvonne Rainer responded and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
To do what?
Well, you put in the context you want. I set it up with the you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Yeah. Here's what I'm immediately thinking in a conversation I had with my oldest brother, who leans towards science more so than I do. I have no problem with science at all, but there's certain things that I don't believe can be proven with the language of science, and that kind of relates to, I think, what you're kind of drawing or implying the way I hear it. Yeah, that you can't using a certain set of tools that aren't necessarily outside of it, you can't, it doesn't work, or at least not that I've seen.
But what is a tool that you gravitate towards? That's an important tool for you? And I use the word new before it, but doesn't have to be new.
And again, I'm a little confused specifically to answer that question. Tool to do what? To define?
Yeah. Here's the thing. When I set it up to dismantle the master's house, you mean asking me for a new tool to dismantle the master's house. Then it's like, well, what's the master factor, you know, and it's really a tool that you utilize. I mean, any tool to do any job, just because I set it up with that quote doesn't mean. And then the fact that I use the word tool, people feel that it has to be a tangible tool, but it doesn't even necessarily have to be something tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one, man.
Well, we'll get into it with the next few questions, but I want to go back to science for a second, because I learned that science is uncovers new facts that can be interpreted many different ways. You know, and so you said something I really liked early on. You said truth as you see things, you know, and that's exactly what I.F. Stone said. He said, the truth as I see it, you know, and he was a, you know, he was a deep researcher and a political journalist, and I appreciate it, but he knew it. It was like, that's the truth as I see it. And so Louis Buñuel, the filmmaker, said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Now, most people think that is cool. I agree with that. And one guy finally challenged me on saying that quote, and he says, that's bullshit. If I'm going to seek something, it's because I'm expecting to find it, or I want to find it. So I sort of morphed it into this question: if the journey is more important than the destination, why do we even have to name a destination or seek a destination if the journey's more important?
A lot of food for thought there. Yikers.
Well, you know, I think it's like the flaneurs, the guys who changed, or the people who changed the world in the 20s in Paris. They didn't have a goal or a destination. They just sat there at a coffee house and had slack and did nothing, daydreamed. And that's like psychogeography, where you wander aimlessly, you know, and then you might stumble into an epiphany, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm all for that. I mean, there's this whole thing about, you know, like song structure and composition and the building blocks of that. What? The key signature, the tempo, the chord progression, the what? Yeah, it has to have a chord progression. And the harmonic relationship between the melody and the blah, blah, blah. You know? And so I say, screw that. You know, I mean, I have no problem with pop songs. I've written a ton of them. I love pop music, you know, but that's what's happening in my mind right now as you say these things.
That is really good, because we're going to get into music, but in a few minutes. But you really brought up a great line I learned from Bob Lucas, who's from Ohio. A great songwriter. He said, this next song's in the G of key.
Sounds good to me.
People always go, what? What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, I don't worry as much anymore as I have at one point or another in my life. That's for sure. Usually, and this is not really answering your question, usually I'm excited about the next day, and it's difficult to fall asleep because I'm thinking about the things I want to do or the things that I didn't quite finish today that I've got planned for tomorrow. The only time I really worry is when I'm in a romantic relationship. I'm going, oh boy. I mean, that's what comes to my mind. I've had my challenges, as I'm sure many people have, and you're trying to work through it when you're trying to go to sleep. That's a waste of time.
Yeah. You know, Marsh McLuhan learned. No, that was good because it's almost like I've added the. I just found a new question to follow up on the worry question. I haven't asked anyone it yet, but you actually answered it. The question is, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night? And then they answer it. Then I go, what do you do with your worry? And it's almost like you said, you flip your worry into productive planning for positivity the next day. Like, let's get something done. So McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. And you know, by artists, I mean musicians, painters, filmmakers.
Yeah.
The artists are broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we might be able to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So, Laurence, I asked you the question McLuhan probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, like all your questions, they're good, and that one was a good one. I'm not sure how if I can answer that one. Certainly not very quickly.
Yeah. Do you think artists have moral obligation?
I do. I think everyone has moral obligation, actually, but then you get into a real snake pit, when you start talking about morals and all that. But I'm talking about just basic stuff. But still, even that I think is can be challenging to get everyone to agree on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, for me, I do. Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Because I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add that, again, words have meaning. It's not just, a sound. I mean, everybody has their association with what the meaning of the word, and through their own lens, through their own experience, their childhood, adulthood, everything, So it's hard to pinpoint, but yeah. Anyways, I was just babbling.
No, this is what it's all about. We're just having fun.
Yeah.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
For myself, I would say I'm more afraid of old ideas, but I don't really have a problem with new ideas. So I guess I don't really share that fear. But yeah, I mean, on the flip side, like culturally, I suppose for me, I'm pretty traditional in some ways, and I'm an older guy, so I'm set in my ways of what I've learned and experienced and come to believe in my life. And so, of course, one could say maybe I'm, it's like with art, I guess I'm more good with new ideas, and although I think there's been plenty of good stuff that could still be expounded upon that hasn't, but
yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Yeah. I remember I had what I thought was the first time I recognized that I had a dream, and it was like, maybe like 2 or 3 years old, and I just vague. Of course, it's very vague, but that's like one of my earliest memories, is to think, oh, that's a dream. That was a dream.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Do you think memory is more a curse or more a blessing?
A blessing. Yeah.
Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, I'm thinking about my father and my sister. My sister was incredibly loving. I miss her, so it's hard to talk about her. But she was always positive and encouraging, and I mean, she hardly ever had a bad thing to say. You know, I mean, unlike myself, I can be really judgmental. I've learned to curb my, you know, that thing about tearing things apart, which I actually got from my parents, including my father, who was the other person I was going to mention that had an impact on me. And with my father, it was that he was loopy and seemingly happy most of the time and free. You know, just I mean, you might see him walking to the house half dancing and just singing to himself, you know, and it's just like, why, what, you know, and who cares, you know? So I learned that it was okay not to have a reason, you know, that kind of thing.
That is heavy. Have you ever seen the movie My Favorite Architect about Louis Kahn?
I may have, but
Anyways, it almost reminded me of that, because the guy he's one of the greatest architects of America, but he was loopy and he had 3 families and they didn't know about each other. And then one of the sons made a doc about him. Like, you know, he's a great architect.
This is a real story.
Oh, it's a real story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the word loopy is great because you know, you use loopy and you use free. Well, you know, there's a fine line between loopy and free. You know, loopy sort of insinuates, you know, a little bit wacky or crazy. Free means how can you carry on? But there's a little contradiction there. It's almost like I think you told me, or tell me, clarify this, is that you learned to tear things apart from him, meaning that could be break things down in a critical thinking sense, or just, you know, over criticize things. I mean, you know, did you mainly get critical thinking from your dad? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think the critical thing that we're talking about is more like, you know, this is right, this is wrong, don't do this, do this, that's not good enough, this is excellent, you know, these kinds of judgment calls, you know.
Judgment calls. So
Yeah.
you mean when you said tear things down, you meant to say like more like judgment calls. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that was good. Now, outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you.
Well, can we include musicians like?
Oh, anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Sid Barrett for sure. I mean, I can rattle off quite a few. Captain Beefheart, you know, Eric Dolphy.
Okay, wait, let's stop.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sid. What do you think you mainly got from Sid? Just one thing.
Oh, Flights of Fancy, and a sense of phrasing that was not logical. And of course, Interstellar Overdrive, you know, this free form rock, which was a huge blast for me and my 2 musical brothers. You know, that was a big eye opener, ear opener. I mean, we've been exposed to other free stuff, you know, John Cage and Stockhausen. I mean, if you want to call that free, not exactly free, but breaking barriers. And, you know, and there's other psychedelic rock bands that were doing stuff, but
that was really good. Because just to drop a quickie anecdote, you know, Captain Beefheart called me 52 times in 1991 on the phone in the middle of the night once a week. And it was an amazing experience. And then, you know, he had a huge impact on me. Right in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I had the poem on my dorm in Alice Lloyd dormitory in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
The poem was pasted on the front of my dorm door. The stars are matter, we are matter, but it doesn't matter. Truly amazing poetry from the king of Dada Rock.
Yeah.
But Eric Dolphy, the other thing I love about Eric Dolphy, which we could talk about both of them for hours, is they go, where did you get, well, Sun Ra said the same thing. Where did you get your sound from? Who'd you listen to growing up? And he said, the crickets.
There you go.
Sun Ra says, oh, I listen to the birds and the crickets.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the phone call with Captain Beefheart, because a friend of mine, I had posted yesterday, I was going to have you go, you were going to interview me today. And he said that he had talked to you and out at Santa Monica like years ago.
Yeah.
And that he learned that Captain Beefheart used to call you up, regularly and just go on. What's
your friend's name?
Bob Strauch.
Wow. How do you spell last name?
I think it's I could never figure it out. I've been told how to spell it, but I'm not good with retaining information. Strauch, maybe.
Oh, cool. Well, we'll talk about it later. I'd like to hook up with them.
Yeah.
So, onward and upward. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
We weren't a religious family by any stretch. No, we were basically a science-built organization, but we were brought up Christian. I mean, we went to Sunday school, through elementary school, and then stopped, of course. But the principles behind what Christ said, love one another as yourself and that sort of thing, So religious, no, but.
Do you pray?
Yeah, from not regularly, but yes, I do. Yeah.
If God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
I have no thoughts about that, or it's like I just immediately draw a blank.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I'm afraid both is true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to say, and then it gets really complicated. Like, how could somebody or anything be born in a demonic state? What's the word? It starts with a P, I think. Where someone's pathological or something.
Oh, pathological, yeah.
Yeah, where they enjoy killing little animals, stuff like that. You just go, how can that possibly be? And yet, in a rare instance, these things occur. How'd that happen? And what is that? I have big questions,
It's great, because when you said the word, it starts with a P, I said to myself, possessed. And then you said logical, because it's really, it is so many of my questions that are, I say, is it more this or more that? It's both, but it's just a jumping off point for discussion, because the real question, Laurence, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I set it up with a few modern thinkers. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais, keep your friends close.
Yeah, and your enemies closer.
Yeah. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, he says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
That resonates with me. I mean, I can experience that. I can see that. Certainly if you're going to, because it helps you dwell on it, number one. It's difficult to let go if you're constantly going, there he is, or there she is, or there it is,
Yeah. But how do you generally advise someone to deal with an enemy?
Well, perhaps foolishly, I say, you just got to let go, or forgive, without asking for a change in them, or, that kind of spiritual take on it, right?
It's good.
And that's really difficult. I mean, it's possible.
Really
I've done it, but it's difficult because even before you do that, though, you have to define what the heck is an enemy, anyways.
yeah.
Why are you calling that guy, or some injustice must have occurred, or something like that.
It's like the forgive word is so good. Mark Twain said, "Forgiveness is the smell that the flower gives off when the foot steps on it."
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was thinking that you were going to say instead is the fragrance that the flower gives off after the bees come and pollinate it.
But
yeah.
Forgiveness is the key. It's so hard. But Ram Dass said, I'm having a real hard time loving George Bush. It's like fill in the blank. I'm having a real hard time loving Putin or loving Trump. It's like forgiving is the key. So James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go in?"
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Joyce said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" And years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, and I'm thinking in relation to going to see a play, you have this distance, this safety, where you can experience it cathartically, something that maybe you yourself have experienced. It's maybe something pretty crappy, or maybe it's a beautiful thing. And you get to experience it again in a free-floating, no impact, no actual, it's a total safety net. I mean, that's all I'm thinking initially, impulsively, as you asked the question on that.
So, Laurence, walk me through basically when you said the tipping point, I want to pursue music. I know you've had this family. You talked about your dad singing and a lot of siblings playing music. But where was it where you go, I want to do this, and then, pick this instrument to do that and have it, my career, it seems as though you have a compulsion to make music.
Correct. Yeah. And my compulsion, could be read as that, or it could be read as an obsession. To me, those are negative words in light of creativity. For me, I have so many thoughts. I have to get them out of my head. So it's like, I don't feel like I have a choice. I could either go mad, or I could continue what I've been doing all my life. And that's learning how to write a song from this melody that I have in my mind, the lyrics that express the feeling that I'm feeling so strongly, or a composition that's going to be, the notes are going to be placed in such a way that expresses this abstract construct, like literally, and that's the beauty of it, and nothing more, nothing less. But initially, music, and I'm just going to speak for myself, because I think Roger and Ben probably experienced basically the same kind of thing anyways. For me, music has always affected me deeply, emotionally.
Yeah.
And we were exposed at an early age, because our father would play piano. My sister played piano when we were little kids, right? Because they were older, of course. And my father always played, romantic classical music, Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, and some wilder stuff, Stravinsky and Grieg, and so modern stuff. But we were brought up in that environment, listening, always hearing this. And the first instrument that I wanted to play was the bagpipes. For whatever reason, Celtic music, boom, it clicks, and it really affects me. And I just don't understand why, and I don't care, it doesn't matter. but I love bagpipes. Now, not everybody does. And again, I don't give a crap, but that's what I love. And my mother told me, I must have been like 8 or 9. My mother told me they're too difficult to learn and they're too expensive. I'm sorry, and and she's right, but I mean, it's too bad because I'm sure I could have taken to it, but it wasn't until, British invasion was a huge, was it because we were hitting adolescence at that time? Who knows?
Yeah.
But boom, that was the light went off. And, and then of course it didn't help any, or should I say it didn't hurt any when we started smoking pot,
Yeah.
and, learning how to play the guitar and the drums and the bass and, relearning the keyboards and thinking about, we can do this,
Yeah. No, that was really good. We're going to get into music now, finally. Thank you. So,
thank you.
Yeah, a screenwriting teacher actually at University of Michigan told me a great film or great art, great music is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Stanley Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're writing a song, when you're composing music?
Well, first off, both of those viewpoints are correct, in my opinion. For me, my intention is to get it out of my head, out of my heart, out of my spirit, because I don't ever. And some songwriters, they'll sit down, they have this desire. I want to write a song, and it's going to be a reggae style. No, it's going to be a 12-bar blues. Well, no, they may go about it like that, and I'm sure there's plenty of other people, songwriters and so forth, composers that don't, and then think more like me, that it's like there's something inside, and I hear a melody and I want it to come out properly. I have a feeling that I want to express. I'm inspired a lot through romance, through the relationships I've had with women throughout my life. I give them the credit. But so that's the intention, is to, it's hard to define what that intention is other than to get it straight, to get it out and beautiful, in its own way, even if it's painful or ugly,
Yeah. No, that was well put, Laurence. I really feel what you're saying. You're putting these words together and you're communicating to me. And it feels like I'm getting it, because really a lot came out of what you just said. But Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your listener when you're I didn't even get to finish the question. That's like, we don't need no stinking words here. It's like,
well, here's the issue.
I'm going to finish the question.
Yeah.
How much do you think of your listener when you're composing your music?
Not one bit. And that's probably, there's the problem to my life, because I don't have
problem. I would say, well, that's the key to having a happy life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's undoubtedly true, and I am happy, but I'm not making any money. Had I marketed, I know what my audience is. Yes, they want this. Yes, they want that. Then I'll be caught in, under the spotlight, and then you got, expectations and that nightmare. And who knows how I would have dealt with that. But,
but you can't equate money, come on.
No.
Your website is so amazing, because, the great thing, you brought up John Cage. The great thing that Cage said is, he says, it doesn't matter what the press says about you. It's how thick your press kit is. And if you look at your website, it is like, that dude has a press kit this thick. And, I was really having fun skimming through it really fast. And my favorite one was Ann Arbor's Mothers of Invention. I mean, God, that to me, that is like the Godhead. I'd have that plastered on my wall. I mean, that's what that's what the Ann Arbor needed. By the way, have you heard Zappa at the fifth, what was that called? The Fifth Dimension? that
I
psychedelic.
didn't. Yeah, I know of the club. My brother Roger went and saw Pink Floyd. It was after Sid Barrett was ousted, but they were doing Sid's material, and Roger saw
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix. I think possibly.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible looking back now.
What an amazing! And then Wayne Kramer stuck his guitar in the ceiling on the last day of the club, like whoop.
Oh wow.
But you also evoke the great McLuhan line that says, "The Balinese have no word for art. They do everything as well as they can."
Mm.
And it's not like, I mean, you've done music well. It doesn't matter if it sells in the long run, unless you think you got to. I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and it goes through the whole selling out. Another
Yeah.
Michigander, Paul Schrader, guy who wrote Taxi Driver, he said, "The role of the artist is to attempt to sell out, but fail." Now that one's funny, I think.
Yeah.
And then Al Flipside, he put out the punk magazine that spawned everybody in LA. He said, "Don't sell out, sneak in."
Nice. I like it.
So what is the function of music?
Well, I'm just immediately think to express the human condition, which is many and varied, and I mean, it's just one of those weird things about this species, this failed experiment called humanity.
Well, George Bailey Pelley started the Ann Arbor Film Festival 61 years ago. His mantra was ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, or as Captain Beefheart called him, Cecil Taylor said, "I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me." Again, it's a stupid question, but just a jumping off point. Is art making, music making more self-expression, or more you're a vehicle for whatever culture, technology, environments are dominant?
Well, I think it's pretty obviously both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of myself inside my person. It's an expression of myself, but I'm subject just as anyone else, regardless of whether they're artists or mechanics or whatever, to the reality around them, which is technology. I mean, you can certainly, point to that.
Well, the hidden question really there is, can art making be egoless?
I suppose it could be. It's pretty difficult, at least from I'm thinking, as someone like myself who I can do all of it, I can play all the instruments well enough, track by track in the studio. So I'm a one-man band. So I don't have to bother telling anybody else how to play it. Come on, it's supposed to go like this. And I write the stuff, I write the lyrics, I can sing, I mean, I can do it all. It's kind of unsatisfying in a way. It's not to have a band and not to interact with other people. But my point is that being able to do that, I'm thinking me, myself, and I'm doing this. I did it. This is me. So it becomes an ego-centered experience, broadly speaking. It's difficult on your own as one person to let go, I would think, except for being in the moment, like in an improvisation, whether it's a solo or something, just, against something or something that's completely free, then I know I can be lost and not think of it as myself,
Yeah. Yeah, because James Brown's drummer from Ohio, he said, where'd you get your sound from? Because, he basically invented funk drumming. And he said, well, there was a train track on one side of my house and a factory on the other. So I just heard, But it was funny.
Sure.
The guy from Negative Land, when I asked him this question about a year ago, and he said, Missy Elliott learned how to sing from car alarms.
Oh, wow.
You know, and the other one I love to cite is Ginger Baker. He said, "Where'd you get your drum sound from?" He says, "I was in London when they were bombing us." Boom, 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 boom. You know.
Double
So
rack toms.
yeah, that's it. So my friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. So technique, you've learned how to play. Theory, you know what you're playing. How does one acquire taste?
Well, I'm thinking over time, right? And
Yeah,
listening, doing a whole lot of listening,
yeah,
whether it's to yourself in the process or, with music, other bands, other artists, other songwriters, other voices,
yeah.
instrumentation.
No, listening is a key element of music. In fact,
Yeah.
Aaron Copland says the 4 elements or ingredients of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. First of all, how would you explain to the lay person, just a normal person, what is tone color in like normal words?
Well, I'm not sure what it's not clear to me exactly what you're meaning or whoever that guy is meaning as tone color is like the tone of a clarinet versus a saxophone or a
Yeah,
violin.
I
That
mean, I
kind of
think
tone color?
that's what he mean. I mean, when Aaron Copland said these 4 ingredients, he was meaning as a technical musical term, tone color means timbre.
Yeah, yeah,
But I says that's too technical. What does
yeah,
timbre mean?
yeah.
What does tone color mean just to in layperson's terms?
Right, right. So I would think of it in modern terms probably as like the surface, like, edge, uh, bald, sharp, I guess it would be an answer to the question there, like, bumpy, sandy,
Yeah,
wavy.
no, that's perfectly leads into the next question. But before we go into that, how do you integrate the 4? Are you more a melody, a harmony, rhythm, or tone color person, or are you constantly just navigating all 4?
Probably melody and tone is probably more where I'm at.
Melody and tone are you're at, I see.
Mm-hmm.
And Thelonious.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was thinking about something.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Because I'm just using these as
Yeah.
prompts to go off on say anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're doing great, and I'd like to think I'm doing pretty good. I'm not a real talker is the issue. So, but at any rate, to get back to my initial thought that made me laugh, I was thinking about melody and tone. I've always been melody driven. Like I get hooks in my head. I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a melody.
Yeah.
And it's usually pretty darn good hook, and
Yeah.
I'll use it for the chorus.
Yeah.
And more so than my 2 brothers, and I have no idea why, and again, who cares? But very melodic, melody driven ideas, at least in terms of songwriting. But what made me laugh to finish this thought is the music that both my twin brother and I pulled up last year, and we the stuff that we wrote when we were 19, 20, 21 back in the mid 70s, and we recorded them properly this year.
I see.
clarinet, saxophones. You know, I played drums. You know, we played bass, and we had a friend play some keyboards. Blah blah blah. This kind of weird atonal bebop, spaz jazz, freeform kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the point that I wanted to make, I'm trying to get to, is that there is no chord progression. There is no straight harmony.
Yeah.
But it's very much melody. You know, I mean, you need sometimes quite a few melodies at once, and they fight each other. And the tone, you know, the tone of the horns, you know, and I was just laughing that, you know, I mean, it's babbling at this point, but I was just laughing because I was thinking my answer to your initial question was, you know, melody and tone. I thought, yeah.
No, it's good because I mean, in your case, you've played so many different types and genres of music that when I'm asking you these questions, it's like, well, which one do you want me to talk about? That's what when I was hearing all your different takes, because you know, even when you sing Itsy Bitsy Spider for your kids thing, there's this sound on the guitar. And I was like, that's amazing. Like those kids that you could be spawning the next, you know, Hendrix kid because he heard you play, not just the typical, you know, children's songwriter
Strum
thing.
The chords,
strumming the chords nicely. Like,
I put an edgy blues kind of flavor to it.
But it's like,
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just thinking also too, by another kind of extreme comparison with the mock schlock retro lounge thing that I was doing for a while, where I mean, it's almost like just hideous, you know, just this real polished, you know, not all of it was, some of it was kind of raw, but it led eventually to kind of this polished schlocky stuff. But it was surreal, you know, I mean, that was where I was getting off. You know, surreal and ultra romantic, you know.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like America Drinks and Goes Home, man. We've been studying that song by the Mothers. That's an amazing song because it's totally a mockery of lounge music, but it is reverently mocking lounge music. That was the key for Frank. His satire was he was reverently mocking the things that he loved.
It's interesting, you
know, but it is the reminding me of the Brill Building songwriters, and they would ask him what came first, the melody or the words, and they said the phone call. And also what you said, talked about spaz jazz, almost it sounded like you were describing harmonics, you know, Ornette Coleman's sort of system, which, you know, no one can really define what harmonics is. And Jamal Takuma played with the Ornette and he says, well, I don't know what it is, but I play it. And it's probably better. It reminded me of, did you know this one? When they did, John Zorn and everybody did the big tribute to Ornette a couple of years ago before he died.
I missed that.
You know, it's like at fucking Carnegie Hall or something, and everybody's there playing Ornette songs. And they asked Ornette, do you want to play? And he goes, oh, okay. And he sat over in the corner and played everything different than they were playing the notes. He's like, no, you're, you know, and he's over there playing. That to me was the epitome. It reminded me of the other Sonny Rollins story. He goes, he'd play a show and then he'd go backstage and keep playing. And the guys in his band would go, dude, we're done. He goes, I'm still trying to work things out.
Man.
You know, that's true musician. But it is back to this word taste, you know, which you said you acquire by listening and time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say exposure, but that's listening and time. And McLuhan has an interesting line. He said, song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's really interesting. I've
Yeah.
never thought about that, and immediately it goes, yeah, that sounds that there's a truth, a ring to that.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about, what's the Mexican music it's real fast, has a lot of brass,
Yeah.
Mariachi, I can't
Yeah.
remember what yeah,
Marathi. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. And I was thinking, well, y vamos nosotros, no tienes, it's just like really fast, I mean,
Yeah.
as far as to my American, English,
Yeah.
whatever, Caucasian ear,
Yeah.
but, who knows? Yeah.
Well, it's also tuba throat singers. I find their music transcendental, but we finally found out that they sing about three things: their boots, snow, and the horses. It's like, man, I'm off in this other world, and that's all they're singing about. It doesn't matter. So what's more fundamental, music or language?
What's more fundamental?
Yeah.
Okay, can you help me understand exactly what the word fundamental means or would mean in this context? Well, I mean, I suppose that's my job. Try and figure out what that's about.
You answered a question like, no, you answered a question with a question, Laurence. That's actually, you win. That's what this series is all about: inventing new questions. But it's sort of like, what came first? Did people,
yeah, go ahead.
But it's like there's only three things really. There's spoken word, printed word, and electronic word. Now, in spoken word, you could include gesture.
Yeah.
So
body language.
Is music sort of more fundamental? Is it pre-spoken word and gesture? That's the hard thing.
Yeah. So I think the answer, just on a primal level, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's biomimicry, which is the funny thing I haven't asked you yet. But before I get into that, let's do this one. Let's just take one of your tools. You play so many instruments. Let's take the guitar. McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness. So clothing extends our skin. Knife and fork extend our teeth. And even non-tangible, maybe religion or philosophy, extends consciousness. What does the guitar extend for you? What humanness?
I don't know if you're getting my thoughts, but
dude, you could totally say it. I've heard it a million times.
Well, my first thought was my penis.
Of course, that's like a no-brainer. Yeah. But it is an amazing thing that people say that, and that's true. It's to extend some humanness.
Yeah.
And so, biomimicry is the flip. Is that when the person invented Velcro, they saw it in plants. And so that's called biomimicry.
Yep,
We're mimicking, we didn't invent the mirror as much as we imitated water as a reflecting surface. Mm-hmm. And so that's like, back to Eric Dolphy and Sun Ra, but Messiaen is the one who's most noted. Where, who inspired you? He says, I learned from the birds. Mm-hmm. So did humans hear birds, start whistling, and then start speaking? So that's what's more fundamental. Yeah. Tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
Well, I'm sure there are instrumentals that do make me laugh. I can't think of one offhand. I mean, one does just pop up, and I'm thinking, it's like, I don't know.
But it's interesting that how could a song make someone laugh if there's no words in it? You know,
Well, it's undoubtedly an association with something.
well, Thelonious Monk said, because that's one, when I hear a couple Thelonious Monk songs, I actually laugh.
Well, he's
Because,
funny to watch. The guy's incredible.
right, but I mean, his notes, he's
Yeah.
hitting his
Yeah.
stride. In fact, you'll love this one. My friend in Venice, Duggo, he says Charlie Parker heard all this. No, Thelonious Monk heard all the same notes that Charlie Parker heard, but only decided to play some of them.
And very carefully.
Yeah, like I'm gonna skip all them runs. I'm just gonna hit this note, that, you know.
Yeah.
But Monk says an interesting thing. He says there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
It's certainly possible. I mean, certainly with him. I mean, whenever I've heard anything by him, it's just like, it's unbelievable. I've been watching Ken Burns' jazz documentary. Sadly, it misses quite a bit of the avant-garde stuff from the 60s and 70s, only touches on it, but really fascinating. And it goes, it has live footage of various artists, and Thelonious Monk is one. And the way he plays and just jabs at the piano, it's just incredible. And then he'll get up and he'll dance in the middle of the song,
And he hits a note, then he pushes his ring on his feet,
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of it, in his experience. That's not a joke,
Yeah. And then Miles Davis talks about the space between notes. How do you navigate that?
How do I personally navigate that?
Yeah. How do you know not to like overplay? How do you know when to have no sound? Like, it's basically, where do you get the sense of dynamics in composing?
Mm-hmm. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, that's a huge. I mean, that's a deep question, and I've been guilty of doing too much. My brother, especially my twin brother, has harped on me several times. It's just too much going on, and that's just partly my style and my nature, But so that is a challenge. I probably have, I have issues with it, trying to find where that space is, because you have to have space. That's what defines the notes.
That's George Clinton said, who I asked him all these same questions right there in Chelsea years ago. He says, funk is the absence of. The way funk, the way the meters leave so much out is amazing. How do you know what to leave out?
Yeah. It's an excellent question.
The other thing I'm curious about, because you've been a live performer so many years of your life, is what Ruth Draper says. The key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. How do you do that? That sounds really cool.
Yeah,
but
right.
I mean, you've had successful live shows. How do you do this?
Well, I've changed over the years. I mean, I used to just cop a pose and that was it. And if they didn't get it, they didn't get it. And that's who cares? They paid, they paid to get in. So what's done is done, very stoic, kind of attitude. And I just play the songs, and you either pick it up or you don't. And I'm sorry. It was more of my attitude, like say back in the 80s,
Yeah.
But I'm much more, since I got sober, which was like a 90. I've learned to actually relate to the audience, right? And to say things between songs, crack a couple of jokes, at least what I think is funny, and bring them in that way, and ham it up a little bit, come on.
Yeah.
Have fun. Gee.
Have fun hamming up. That's good because you having done that with kids, your
Yeah.
children act for 10 years, how did that happen? Because now you're really talking to kid that they're wanting to get involved.
Yeah. That was a complete trip. Yeah. Really grateful that I found myself able to fall into that. And for as long as I did, I loved it. And I don't perform anymore. I still sing for little kids in some of the preschools, but I don't, I don't perform as the Mr. Laurence Experience and that whole thing. But so the question is, I mean, that was, see, the thing about kids is they don't have any, you know, they're not critical thinkers.
Yeah.
And so you can just, as long as you just be open and enjoy yourself, they pick up on it. It's just immediate. Everything's immediate. And it's just a beautiful thing.
That was good. So Ben Ratliff, the music writer, says, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players, as a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, or, they get a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in one single note. So like me or you could probably hear Miles and go, a note or a couple notes and go, that's Miles, or, that's Monk, or that's Captain Beefheart. So Ben would use these two adjectives for Miles, fragile and pointed. Said for Coltrane, slightly undercooked and urgent. So if some music writer was going to, summarize the Lawrence Bond Miller sound in like a couple words, what two words would you feel most honored that, this guy got it,
I'm thinking like marmalade jam or something, just a mishmash of all kinds of stuff.
Marmalade jam is really a good answer. That's great. I think you appreciate this great saxophonist in Venice, Matt Demerit, said rusty for a sax sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one more question about music is what Anthony Burgess, the guy who wrote A Clockwork Orange, he said, we must now, who was a musician and a writer, he said, we must now ask some very different questions about the relationship between music and life. What's a question that remains unresolved for you in this regard?
I'm sorry, can you just say all that again?
Yeah.
Music, and this is regarding music and life.
Yeah, in regards to music and life. And he's saying we must ask some very different questions about the relationship between music and life. It's basically, what's a question that remains unresolved for you about life and music?
I can't think of an answer to that question. Nothing's coming up there, Jerry.
That's all right. Laurence, what do you think the motive of the cave artist was, or the cave musicians? Like, we don't have cave music, we don't have cave dance documented, but somehow we've gotten cave art. So in that regard, just the first artists, what do you think their motive was?
To do that, to do the cave drawings?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of comes back to one of your early questions about information and why, and to collect information, almost like to create a history book, is to validate your reality, whether it's your importance, a supposed importance, or your, your identity and acknowledgement, that kind of thing.
Is perception reality?
No. I don't. I mean, everything. I believe. I mean, if you want to go down that rabbit hole, I think things are. There's so much is subjective. So
Yeah.
much. Yeah. So that's why I answered that question like that.
Dude, I'm glad, because when I asked George Carlin's daughter all these questions, she would crack up, laugh like you do. Then she'd take a deep breath and then answer it. You laugh immediately too, at before and after your answer. So hey, just as long as we're having a good time, that's what I'm.
Yes. Yes.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Conviction. Well, okay, that's I'm answering some of these questions too fast. I mean, yeah, that's my, because you have to be, to me, I place a pretty high value on doing what you believe. So to do things, could be convicted well enough in advance that what you do is what you wanted to do, is what you should have done. That kind of perspective, as opposed to compromising for, well, okay, I'll do it this way. All right. So that, but compromising obviously is the only way you can really function in this world, certainly within relationships. So it's a hard one to answer fully.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
In having accomplished as much as I have?
Yes.
And what are the three again?
Luck, skill, and ambition.
Well, I'd like to think skill, but I'm not all that skilled as much as it may appear that I am. Because I know how to fudge stuff, with recording. I love to produce. That's one of the things I like most is production. So, but having said that, ambition to me always points to dollar signs, and that's not me. But if you look at ambition in terms of desire, the impulse to create, yeah, I think that would be it. Like I've said before, I can't help myself.
Very cool. And you brought this up earlier, and I'm curious. T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. And you talked about your innerness. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Gibberish.
Thank you. I'm glad you understood it, because sometimes people go English and I go, no. I mean, metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness?
Yeah.
In fact, your brother Roger told me about Finnegan's Wake, and it's like, Finnegan's Wake is the greatest book ever written on the face of the earth. He invented the internet and disguised it as a book, but Roger said it saved his life, and it's like, dude, it's an amazing like con job, because it's gibberish. And in what McLuhan did, learning from Finnegan's Wake, is that artists dream awake. And it's not to be elitist, but everybody has this creative power, capacity to create these scenarios while they're sleeping. But artists can also do that while they're awake.
Yeah.
So have dreams played a role in your creative process?
Yeah, a big role. I've written songs at least, probably close to 20 songs, whatever, where I don't wake up with them fully fleshed out, but, I'll have a chorus line and a melody. And then from there, if I do it that day, I'll still feel that way, and I can, bring it to life. What was it given to me? Was it, unconsciously, subconsciously? I don't know. I don't care. But yeah, that's when I answered gibberish. I mean, clearly I'm being kind of facetious, that's the inner language, although there's certainly truth to it. But that I was going to go more into the dream thing, which is where we're touching on now, is, where the creative, the right brain stuff,
Yeah. Well, it's also that amazing memory you have. Is the first thing one of your first memory was that you dreamt something. So to be aware of dreaming, back to George Carlin, he has a great line. Whatever happened to letting kids stare out the window? Like just daydreaming
Yeah,
is
tell
so
me about it.
important. Daydreaming is important.
Really
It's
important.
so Laurence, tell me one major element of your creativeness that's changed in the years you've been doing it, and one major element that stayed the same.
Gee whiz, that's a good question. Two of them, actually. Um, I mean, it's so broad though. It's difficult to answer. You know.
Yeah, it is a big, yeah. Or
Uh,
that it doesn't even have to be a major element. It's just like,
yeah,
what's one element that stayed the same and one element that's changed?
I can't seem to answer that. I mean, I know I'm, you know.
That's all right.
Yeah,
So it's similar to this. Moshe Feldenkrais said he works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength. Normally, we're taught to overcome a weakness.
yeah.
Tell
Well,
me a tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
well, what's popping into my head with that one, where I might be able to form an answer, would be early on in my career. Naivety was a
Yeah.
big element. I didn't know how to write a song. Nobody told me how to write a song. My first songs when I was 14, 15 were less than a minute long because I didn't believe in repetition. Why say something a second time? Like repeat the chorus? No. Second verse, same as the first? No. But, you know, um, and not really having a very good sense of, I mean, okay, so I'm babbling. Let's see.
Well, no, that's good. You flip naivety into a strength by
Well,
being free not to follow forms. Is that what it to follow?
that's part of it, absolutely.
Yeah.
To do it in my own way,
Yeah.
and not worry about whether it's acceptable or who gives a crap. It's.
Well, no, though, dude, those videos you have on your channel of you take these old black and white dance clips. I
Yeah,
mean, that sounds like Zappa meets Mingus meets Henry Threadgill meets Sun Ra. The fucking music there is amazing. I mean, it's like John Zorn, eat your heart out. I mean, that shit is amazing to me. And it's really, you have a great sense, like, because I think I either met you or Ben at the Ann Arbor Film Festival a couple of years ago, just for a second or two. But it reminded me of some of the best things I've ever seen in Ann Arbor in 40, my 40 years of going to that festival, you
well,
know.
thank you, Jerry, so much for saying so. Yeah, I've been told that some of that stuff does have a Zappa flavor to it, or Anthony Braxton, or some such thing. And of course,
Braxton too.
and I really appreciate you saying that. That's the kind of stuff I'm doing right now. Those are pieces that I composed when I was 19, 20, 21, decades ago, right? And resurfacing, due to this connection with Cuneiform Records last year. Anyways, I'm real excited about that. And I'm glad that you enjoyed those funny little, montages of people dancing in the 40s and 50s with that music inserted.
Right. And you do the video editing and
Yeah.
and you just turn the button and speed it up,
Time stretch. Yeah.
Yeah, well, time stretch. That's great because something I saw in 1972 when the 4 cities where Zappa premiered 200 Motels, one of them was Ann Arbor. And I came out of the State Theater after watching 200 Motels and we go, Zappa sold out. And in retrospect, it's the most unsold out rock film ever made. In retrospect, it's an amazing film. And he does that. He choreographs with the editing button or this.
Okay.
He has the dancers doing dance moves, running it forward and backwards in different speeds, which means you're taking the technology and imposing it on the dancer, which is very, I think incredibly avant-garde move to do with dancers that I wonder how many people did it before him. I've asked dance film people who did this technique first. So I don't know who it is, but it's like I asked David Rosenboom, that guy, the avant-garde music guy who was early member of the Ann Arbor Film Festival.
Rings a bell, but no.
Yeah, he's huge because he teaches at Cal Arts. And I said to him in Ann Arbor a couple of years ago, I says, who was the first person to use taped music on stage in conjunction with the live performance? Because it was like Britney Spears enhances her vocals with tape, they said. And I goes, well, just say it was Stockhausen in 62. He was the first. So I asked David who was the first, and he goes, I'm not into first. I go, it doesn't matter. I'm just asking you to talk about the subject, And then I eventually, I thought it was Stockhausen in 62.
Yeah.
Eventually found out it wasn't. It was like the French guys in the 20s.
Oh my goodness.
Live music and tape music at the same time,
That's awesome.
Well, just a few more and we're out of here. Can you go a little longer, 90 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you find peace of mind?
Well, through prayer, through letting go, through what I like to think is a deeper understanding of what's actually important, 24/7, I'm thinking music, and the relationships in my family, friends, but I'm driven like a madman. And at the end of the day, really none of that's important. And so I mean, I'm really blessed in that way that I'm pretty good at feeling peaceful and good with things. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I've still got a few amends left to make, but I mean, I think that's the answer to the question.
Yeah, you brought this up earlier, and it reminded me of I asked Storm and Norman Zamchek, a great boogie woogie pianist from Boston. I says, what's the function of music? And he says, to keep us from going insane.
Yeah.
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
It's going to be okay. I was just like an impulsive response to that. It's going to be okay.
Which way? That's good. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
I always have felt that it should come off under.
And why?
I've been a bit more relaxed over the years. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Why under?
Well, I think because it's closer to the wall, and it just design wise, it makes more sense.
Because 90% of people say over.
Really?
And the patent 100 years ago have it going over. But the amazing thing is the people who say under have their reason.
Oh dear. I don't know what that makes me, man.
These are 5 quick questions from Alan Watts. just off the top of your head in a few words. First one, who started it all?
God.
Are we going to make it?
That's a good question.
3, where do we put it?
In our back pocket.
Who-
Oh, you're freezing up. Sorry, I didn't get that last one.
The 4th one is who's cleaning it up?
This is kind of funny. My initial, I'm going like total, like boom, you are, you know.
That's good. I never get that in. The 5th one is it serious?
Yes. I mean, we could, I mean, I would, if you gave me time, I would rather redo that with a whole bunch of different variations, because
Well, you want to do it. You want to do it one more time again? Just
yeah. Well, I just want to.
I've never had anyone say this is Laurence. This is like my mom when I said, "Can I interview you?" She goes, "Yeah, but everything I say today, I might say differently tomorrow." I said, "That's not right."
Well, seriousness implies that there's meaning, which implies that we know, and which implies all sorts of stuff that may not be true. So to say that, you know, it's serious is ambiguous.
Yeah. No, Zappa had a great one. He says, "I'm very serious about being not serious."
Yeah.
So there, it's what he mainly taught me was how do you embrace contradiction?
Well, that's what he does with parody, and I think I was influenced by that because I have a fair amount of parody in some of the things I've done. Like certainly the slap happy mock schlock lounge stuff is parody.
Yeah.
Laurence Dillon's Novelty Shop is this glam metal, who knows what, and there's definitely parody in that. Blah blah blah.
Well, that's funny because I asked my friend who wrote for Robin Williams comedy, can satire be destructive? And he says, that's the job of satire. Now, if you do a certain cartoon in a certain country and they kill you, some people think dying is destruction. But Jonathan Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own.
Oh, wow.
So it's like Zappa's line, watch the Nazis run your town. Now go home and check yourself. You think we're singing about somebody else. You know, so what's the function of satire or parody? Like, why do you use it? Why did you use it in your lounge act or your glam rock act?
Partly to make fun of myself, to make light of ego, to make light of the seriousness of things that doesn't exist anyways.
Yeah. But see, isn't that important? You can say that to make fun of yourself, you know, as well as you're making fun of a genre or tropes or things that you're making fun of culture, but also of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Zappa sing Broken Hearts Are for Assholes in Vegas once, and he's pointing at people during the song, you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And then he pointed at himself and he goes, you're an asshole, which I think was really telling. You know, he's not just saying you're an asshole, he's saying, hey, I'm an asshole too. We can all celebrate our assholeism.
Yeah.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Well, I think you like impulsive answers, correct? I mean, yeah. So come to Brushkin Braille. That's what comes to my mind. It's just one stupid little drug-induced idiotic statement that I made, or maybe it was my twin brother in a recording decades ago. We get high and we just improvise and say stuff, and that's a line. And that just so happened that that's what popped in my head when you asked me.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm after. And the best is, after I ask a question, you crack up. That's the way I want these things to go. I don't want people to take them too serious.
Yeah.
No,
you're great. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Laurence. You are too. So they want to. The publisher wants to send the glue in the binding of your autobiography? What smell?
Well, I'd like it to be lavender.
Nice. If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Well, again, I'm just, the thought that comes to my mind is marble, and in front of the natural history, the history of what is it? Museum of Natural History. It's in Ann Arbor. It's where my dad worked.
In front of that building, yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
I don't have any logic for that answer. That's just what popped up.
That's it. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Money.
Dude, you know the answer. It's funny. Listen, the answer I get the most: money, fame, and heroin.
Oh, wow.
You know what Mike Kelly said?
What?
Kids,
Oh,
children.
wow.
They're good, never had it, never want it.
Yeah.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I would go under. That's what I do.
I got to tell you, you know what Mike Kelly said to that one?
What?
Cry.
I'm sure.
Did you know him? Did you know him very well?
No.
They went off and then you went into this Soil Monster show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my favorite, I was talking to Niagara once about Destroy a Monster, and she goes, we sounded worse than the Residents. And I was like, dude, that would be a compliment in my opinion.
The Residents, it was a really odd thing about that band, because like some bands, very few, I really liked them, but I wouldn't be inclined to put the record on the table.
Yeah.
But if I did, it'd be like, oh yeah, I like this.
Oh yeah, that I know that. Nels Klein, the guitarist, he's in Wilco now, but he's a really great avant-garde guitarist.
Oh wow.
But he just got a rock star gig, and he's in Wilco, and he's good.
Yeah.
And I asked him, what do you think of Sonny Chirac? And he goes, I want to like him a lot more than I do. And it was like, that was an amazing answer.
Yeah.
Because I think, have you ever heard Seize the Rainbow by Sonny Chirac?
I have one album of his, and there's an element about his playing that just, I love. But
God. Go to YouTube, type in Seize the Rainbow, Sonny Chirac, and
Seize the Rainbow.
It's unbelievable. It's like heavy metal, avant-garde jazz meets Hendrix and Coltrane.
Really?
As Jackson Pollock of guitar playing.
Yeah. What I remember is just very furious stuff.
Oh, it's furious, but it's and also
frenetic. I love frenetic stuff.
And also most people don't know this. He plays a solo on Jack Johnson by Miles Davis, and there's no credit. So we're listening to it in Ann Arbor, and we think it's Herbie Hancock doing something on the keyboard.
But it's him playing guitar?
It's Sonny playing lead guitar on Jack Johnson. It's unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's same with Pete Cozy, the guy who played with Miles. Wow. You ever listen to Pete Cozy?
No.
Oh, he's that same era of Live Evil, On the Corner.
Oh, wow.
Pete Cozy's playing these he was the lead guitarist on Muddy Waters' album Electric Mud. And he's like, comes out of Chicago blues, but he goes straight to the fucking Derek Bailey land,
Wow.
It's like that missing link between Hubert Sumlin and Derek Bailey.
Wow.
A couple more and we're out of here, Laurence. Thank you.
Okay.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Well, my first response is, what's the cultural shift that's, that's doing the exact opposite,
Opposite. Yeah.
which is technology, even down to the, like with foot pedals, it used to be pretty basic and we used to do really cool stuff. And now it's just like stuff that you're going to touch and maybe even think into the AI software. Like, no, the primal humanity, the human level is really detached, and that's freaking me out. But to answer your question more directly, long story short, it does seem that avant-garde music is still alive and well, and there's good stuff still to be had.
That is a great cultural phenomenon. I love to hear that. I just started a new duo with a friend, and I had a flat tire on my bicycle. So I went over to his house and just said, "Do you have a air pump?" And he goes, "Yeah." And we ended up fixing the flat, which nobody does anymore. You don't fix flats, you just put a new tube in. And he insisted on patching it. Awesome. But in the meantime, while it was drying, he had a piano and he plays trumpet. So we started jamming. So we started a new band. It's called FTR, Flat Tire Repair. Isn't that a great title? FTR.
That's great. And the connection with an actual incident and all that.
Yeah. And our first gig is New Year's Eve.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love that. Avant-garde improvised music is alive and well.
Yeah.
And kicking. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
And so Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Okay. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, but Laurence, what's it really all about for you?
Well, I'm thinking about what you just said, and that's kind of it. Like it is confession in a way. True, to the more you can get to the root of it, your spirit, your heart, your experience in a genuine way, and yet dress it up, which is the lie. You dress it up so that it's beautiful, and when I say beautiful, I don't mean pretty. So that the product, the end result is this wonderful, wonderful thing. Even though in reality, it's been dusted up a little bit and polished here and there.
Yeah, that was good. What gives you the most optimism?
The changes that I see in myself and my children and those closest to me, I'm thinking mostly family, growth forward, upwards, resolve, love, all that kind of stuff. Because without that, sorry, it's not worth it, So that's really it. I mean, that gives me the hope that I that's how I lean into hope, love.
Yeah, it's really good. The essence, or the nut meat, the chewy caramel center. It's like, that's it. The first question, what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said, the best thing for a human being is another human being. And the last question is from the question they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life: what gives you the most optimism? And he said, other people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is this need and want for us to share with other people. It's sure been an honor to share this time with you, Laurence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, I'm honored to be here and to meet you, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and it only makes me want to get together someday. I'll be there in Michigan
Yeah,
for the film festival and have a little jam session of improvised avant-gardeness.
absolutely, man. I got a piano in my house.
Well, we'll have a ball if we can get over there. We'll be in Ann Arbor for the week of the festival, so hopefully we'll
Super,
get.
absolutely connect. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I hope this never ends and it goes on forever and ever.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks.